We start with a group of urban youths in silly masks, filming a crappy music video inside a construction site. And given the neighbours have made a noise complaint about their shitty tasting music, the local filth soon turn up and totally bust their ass. But said urban youths in silly masks totally ain't got time for that. So proceed to chuck one of them into a small pool full of garbage bags and get the heck out of Dodge. And runs back off to their apartment complex in the town of Nottingham at the intersection of Sherwood and Forest. And after the dopey cops follow them back, they totally get egged by the BLM locals what friggin' hate their guts. So naturally, they send a fancy drone up to track down the naughty youths, but they totally shoot it down with a homemade slingshot. And tell them to stop trying to do their job and catch an actual group of criminals who just trespassed on private property and kept the local community awake to the early hours of the morning, and sod off already. After the truly terrible neon cringe opening title sequence, we cut to the local sheriff's office, as a pissed off freckly ginger proceeds to emasculate the two terrible coppers for totally failing to catch a bunch of teens in Halloween masks and also for losing a bloody expensive drone to a surprise slingshot attack. No! Turns out said freckly ginger is the actual sheriff of Nottingham. And to prove spotty redheads can be as intimidating as an ex-gal, she takes off her little booty and kicks her own officer square in the chest because reasons.
Ooh, you're hard.
And this poor sod's probably just wondering why he even bothers getting out of bed in the morning when he gets bullied by his own colleagues and then trashed on the late shifts, but not in a good way. Anyway, back in the community block of Sherwood, we then meet an urban girl called Robyn, and you can tell that she's totally hip and down with the kids because her name's spelled with a Y.
Nice.
And this studied and brave and culturally appropriated new modern feminist hero, what don't need no man, totally wants to move out on her own, given she's 24 years old and still lives with her overbearing mummy and little sis. But totally can't afford to because her mum can barely afford the bills as it is, given her sister is at school and Robyn's a minimum wage delivery driver and spending her nights breaking into private property and getting into trouble with local law enforcement. So she suggests maybe asking her dad for some cash. Cause in a shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming, turns out this law-breaking black kid has an absent father what she hardly ever sees.
No way!
Later, she links up with her mate called Much, who's apparently a new member of her gang what's going around shooting cringy music videos in empty buildings and shit. And then her other mate called Alan shows her a rough draft of the crappy music video what he's cobbling together from last night's extra legal recording session. Elsewhere, evil white capitalist John Prince is showing off his collection of 1,000-year-old English coins to the town's Asian mayor, because he wants to sweeten her up so she can totally support Bill 121, which would let him buy up and totally gentrify the whole area of Sherwood. And before you can say, I can't believe out of the only 3 established Caucasian characters so far, 2 are baddies and the other is a feeble pussy old cuck, she tells him that would involve turfing out a bunch of dirt poor ethnic minorities onto the streets, which would look pretty bad coming from an Asian mayor what run on a campaign of woke solidarity and shit. So she tells him to stop asking her to betray her own voter base and shut up about it already. And after bollocking his obnoxious son Chet for bringing another shallow blonde floozy into his penthouse and in the middle of a business meeting to boot, Robyn delivers some fresh crepes to Chetty Boy down in the lobby as a protest emerges behind her and what's led by her broke-ass female birthing parent. And no wonder her mum's struggling with bills if she spends her days doing political activism rather than an honest day's graft. A little later, and her mum explains that they've got to stay and fight this evil white bloke what wants to totally improve the area by turfing out all the antisocial bums which just seem to create trouble with the local police, keep everyone up to the early hours and waste full cartons of eggs. So Robyn goes away to think about it all while smacking up the Invisible Man, before meeting a tall baldy bloke called Little John who's fresh out of the army. And after engaging in a spot of romantic bants, he promptly gets his wood out and pokes her with his stiff and solid shaft. Steady. Suddenly though, it all starts kicking off outside the hall, and turns out the local filth are back and totally trying to arrest the mostly peaceful protesters who stormed onto private property earlier and wouldn't leave when politely asked to. And the trigger-happy copper soon pops a cap in Robyn's mop-head mummy for literally no reason. Because I guess law enforcement bad and defund the police, bro. And instead of applying basic pressure to the wound and trying to stabilise her beloved mother, Robyn just yells about some amber lamps and then just staring at her all gormlessly. whilst her mum just collapses under a giant fuck-off mural of St. Jesus Floyd. Or some shit. Later, said beloved mother wakes up handcuffed to the bed and just can't believe she's lost the use of her legs and has now become a raspberry ripple. Though presumably, she's going to be on full-time benefit payments now, so I guess that kind of makes up for the fact that she's going to be some Ironside cosplayer fella for the rest of her life. When suddenly, that naughty ginger sheriff bird walks in and totally gloats about having taken down Robyn's nuisance mother, and proving it ain't just the white men that are totally bad in this town, and the freckly fannies can totally give him a run for their money too, son. Also later, her mum's light-skinned lawyer called Maid Marian, Miss Fitzwater, then says she can't really do her one job and keep her mum out of jail, and she's facing 2 to 3 years in the big house for being such a fucking nuisance, doing all that activism instead of working an honest 9 to 5 and shit. And in a moment that's just too hilarious and farcical not to be written by ChatGPT, she says her mum's been slapped with bail charges, because apparently the court has deemed a penniless crippled woman with paralysed legs and who's currently cuffed to a hospital bed is totally a fucking flight risk.
What?
So Robyn delivers another batch of trainers to the arrogant Chet fella and totally scopes the place out. And he shows her his daddy's solid gold coin collection, while she just nicks his key card and shit. And before you can say, I can't believe a disengaged minimum wage delivery driver would just steal your stuff like that, we cut to the Hood's HQ, and she hatches a plan with the rest of the gang to totally rob that Prince fella, so they can get enough funds to bail her mum out. Because stealing from heaps just because they're rich is totally okay now, apparently, as long as it's done by those who scream about democracy every 5 minutes, and the proceeds are given to the poor paralysed activist mothers who love provoking rich white men to the point of retaliation so they can cry victim. So naturally, they get their hacker mate called Tuck to totally fix up that drone what they shot down earlier. And later that night, they don their cheap-ass neon masks again to totally start the mostly peaceful robbery heist. Using the newly repaired drone as their eyes and ears, Robyn and Little John head on up to the penthouse, but first pause for our hero to reveal that she's one of them greedy bisexual fellas who love taking it from anyone with a pulse. But before the writers can finish setting the scene for the inevitable love triangle between her, John and the phony fakey Maid Marian Bird, the pair soon get trapped upstairs when Prince and the sheriff turn up unannounced to discuss totally yeeting that nuisance activist invalid and shit. But the Caucasian sheriff says she don't really want to murder a disabled black woman with floppy legs, because that would be like a hate crime on steroids, son. But suddenly, she catches Robyn red-handed doing some stealing, and it looks like it's curtains for the absurdly race and gender-swapped icon from ancient English folklore. But luckily, their colleagues use the drone to distract the sheriff with shiny lights, as Little John swiftly disarms her, before a full-on brawl breaks out, and before you can say, why don't the sheriff take off her little boot and start unleashing her shoeless kicking powers already? Robyn chokes out the evil white bloke before totally saving her military-trained baldy bae by aiming a random bow and arrow at her freckly arch-nemesis. And they soon get the heck out of Dodge by sneaking up on a rich guy's useless security team, what seemingly have been too busy washing their boss's car collection to notice a gang of urban youths infiltrating a $1 million penthouse full of ancient coin collections. And they promptly then nick his Rolls Royce. Liberties! And after picking up the other 2 accomplices, who seemingly did fuck all but shine a light around the place, they go back to their HQ to celebrate their law-breaking behaviour, before Robyn uses the profit from illegally stripping and selling the fraudulently obtained valuable car parts to totally post her mum's bail. And the nuisance activist, who was just crippled by a powerful rich bloke, says she don't care that Prince and his cronies blew her back out, because she's going to use her new benefit payments to buy a motorised wheelchair and get right back to annoying him again. And we end with the gang posting a music video they've made, publicly bragging about having stolen multi-millionaire John Prince's motor. And before you can say, this'll end well, the sheriff totally shows him said video and reckons they've now started a war. Because he just can't believe that he's been literally mugged and also mugged off by a minimum wage delivery driver what wears budget neon masks and makes cringy rap videos in the evenings. And that's it. That's the first epi. Though my favourite part was having to listen to a bunch of Canadians randomly using British roadman slang. And for a while, I still thought this might have been made by ChatGPT. But you could tell this was actually written by a bunch of humans because not even woke AI could be this fucking cringe. But man, what an opening. And to be fair, this show got off lucky, given it's not even the most embarrassing thing to happen in Canada last week.
Bruh.
But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot. Considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this show in the comments if you have time, and I'll see you in the next one.